Hey gals, welcome to Binge Free Bestie, the podcast where we ditch the diets, break free from binge eating, and build a safe and empowered relationship with our bodies. I'm your host, Nick Carberia, a registered therapist who totally gets it. Binge eating and body image struggles? Yep, I've been there, done that, and I've got the therapy bills to prove it. But here's the good news, bestie. I've recovered and I'm here to help you to do the same. This potty is all about real, evidence-based strategies from my therapy practice, plus down-to-earth, relatable girl talk with me and some of my amazing besties and other experts who have their own stories, tips, and tricks to share with you. So, whether you're tired of the diet cycle, ready to ditch the shame spiral, or just want to feel more confident in your own skin, then you've come to the right place. It's time to get real about food freedom, body acceptance, self-care, and building a life you truly love. Let's get into it, besties.
Hey beautiful bestie, welcome back to this week's potty episode. I'm Nick, I'm your registered therapist and your binge-free bestie. And this is the place where we ditch food guilt, body shame, and all of that bullshit diet culture keeps throwing our way. Now today's episode is because I'm feeling a little bit fired up. So the reason for that is because lately I've been seeing this trend and it honestly feels like a bit of a bad 90s throwback. And no, I'm not actually talking about low-rise jeans. And yes, I do think that those are a crime too. But I'm talking about the rise of something called SkinnyTok. And I really think that this is the not so subtle comeback of the whole thin is in era. So have you been noticing this too? Have you been seeing that your feed is just suddenly flooded with, it girl morning routines and hot girl weight loss eras and really just a really big nostalgic nod towards that whole heroin chic era? If you've noticed this too, then you are not imagining it. I really think that the internet and our culture is having a moment. And not in a good way. So in this episode, we're going to unpack what the hell is going on, why this trend is so dangerous, especially if you're someone who is recovering from binge or emotional eating. And most importantly, I want to chat to you about how you can protect your peace and stay rooted in your recovery. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, like I said, SkinnyTok, it's there. It's popping up, and there has been a massive surge in this kind of content that is glamorizing thinness again. And as I said too, it's not subtle. It's really quite loud and it's everywhere. There is so much content celebrating discipline and clean eating aesthetics, thin girl summer, and influencers who are just really not secretly chasing preteen sized versions of themselves and labeling it as health and well-being. So I'm seeing more and more content that is glorifying thinness as a moral achievement. And there is content of people berating those in bigger bodies or picking on and bullying people who struggle with food and eating and saying, hey, that's your fault. I mean, I saw a piece of content last week from a woman who was, a Pilates girly. I'm a Pilates girly. I love Pilates, by the way. But, she's that classic Pilates girly. And she was saying that she is just disgusted that plus size women show up to her Pilates classes and they take up space in her classes and they struggle and they shouldn't be there because they're not like her. It was an absolutely disgusting piece of content and something that is quite hard to watch. I've also seen content come through from SkinnyTok of women saying things like, if you're struggling with eating, overeating, or tracking your food, or you just can't control yourself, that's your fault. I mean, there's these, it's awful. I looked up SkinnyTok myself just to go down the rabbit hole and see what is happening there, and there was all of these girls so proud of the advice that they were giving to other women, saying things like, don't eat treats because you're not a dog, you shouldn't be eating treats, you don't need snacks, just have your meals, stop being pathetic. And it's just absolutely awful and it is so dangerous. So this resurgence of thinspo, it's triggering for even me. And I've been down this recovery path for a long time. So if you're feeling triggered by it, I just want to validate you and say that is a really normal reaction to be having to this content that's coming up. And this resurgence of thinspo, or this new SkinnyTok thing, it's really risky if you are in recovery from any sort of disordered eating, or if you're just trying to build trust with your body. So let's take a breath together. Let's talk about it, because what might sometimes look like as wellness on the surface, it's still just diet culture. Maybe it's in a prettier, more aesthetic outfit, but it's still pushing the same body ideals that just aren't realistic for most of us. If you look at this advice that the girlies are giving on SkinnyTok, they're saying, exercise this, follow this plan, eat this food, and you'll look like me. But we know that is bullshit. We know that even if I followed her eating plan to a T, ate the exact same food, the same portions, the same calories, the same macros, and I did the same workouts, there are so many factors that contribute to your weight and shape other than moving and eating, right? So even if I followed her plan to a T and did exactly what she did, there is absolutely no guarantee of the same results. So this advice that they're giving, we know, it's unethical because they're promising, results and things that just aren't realistic for most people. It's also incredibly unsafe, and it's emotionally exhausting because you feel like you need to continue to be on that diet culture hamster wheel. And that is so tiring. We've already been on that hamster wheel for years, for decades, and here we are again. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we're experiencing and why it's so potentially damaging. And unfortunately, I don't think that this is going to be a brief trend. I think this is a bit of a relapse. So I think that our culture is relapsing into this thinspo aesthetic that has already harmed a whole generation of women, us millennial gals included, but our mums too. The 90s and early noughties were hard, and then it flipped over to curves are okay, and then we had this really beautiful body positivity, body neutrality, body acceptance movements where people in all different shapes and sizes were encouraged to work towards that place of acceptance and self-love, and that was celebrated. I mean, you look at the likes of like Lizzo and Fat Love and all of these beautiful movements that started coming forward, and now it feels like we're going backwards. It just feels like all of that stuff isn't welcome anymore, and that heroin chic of the 90s has just been rebranded now, and it's just showing up in pastels and Pilates. But I want to be really, really clear. The return of thin is in. It's not harmless. It's not a harmless nostalgia. It's a trauma trigger. And it will be a trauma trigger for so many people like us who have spent years trying to unlearn the belief that, my body is only valuable when it takes up less space. So if you are someone, and you likely will be if you're listening to this particular podcast, if you're someone who's struggled with binge eating or emotional eating, or your relationship with the way that you look in your body, then this kind of content, when it comes up on your feed, the content saying don't eat treats, you're not a dog, or if you're in a plus size body you shouldn't be coming to Pilates, that kind of content doesn't just make you roll your eyes, or it's not so easy to just scroll past it and ignore it, because this kind of content for you, it pulls you right back into the old patterns. It's really fires up that shame and the self-comparison, and it might fire up even your urge to restrict your food or compensate for when you are eating, because there's a voice that's saying to you, see, you were never supposed to heal, you were never supposed to be working on your relationship with food or trying to accept your body if it's a curvy body. You are supposed to get skinny. That's all that matters. And I see this in a lot of my clients, that this content is making them feel really uncomfortable. And honestly, it's making me feel uncomfortable too. Even after all the work that I've done, even after all the tools that I've got. Because diet culture is making a really strong appearance right now to say thinness equals worth, thinness equals safety, thinness equals your success. So we're seeing that being celebrated again. And we're seeing it being celebrated by people who have really massive social platforms and influence. And it kind of feels like we're slipping backwards. But let's put a positive spin on this. Let's take our power back. So here's some things we need to focus on. And I know you know this, but I'm going to repeat it. Your value does not increase when your body shrinks. Makes shit all difference. The size of your body does not change you, does not change your value, does not change the beauty of who you are, your essence. Doesn't matter what size body you're in. And we know this one. Thinness is not a guarantee of health. Thinness is not a guarantee of happiness. And it is certainly not a guarantee of peace. If anything, when you're chasing thinness, it just pulls you further away from the life that you've been trying to build. And I know you're working so hard to build something for yourself. You're trying to build something that's really grounded and vibrant and emotionally safe, and we're wanting to build something that lasts, right? So yeah, I'm getting a little bit fiery about this today because it just pisses me off that what's being sold as motivation and discipline is actually just a setup for yet another round of self-loathing and restriction. And these are the things that will just trigger more and more women to get stuck in things like binge eating. I want to say that if you're watching this kind of content and you're starting to feel some panic rising in your chest, you are not broken. Your nervous system is actually picking up on a threat that it's seen before. And your body is just trying to protect you. So that point actually leads me perfectly into the next section of what I wanted to chat about today. And that is, given all of this, okay, Thinspo's making its comeback. We know that that has potential for danger and for relapse for us. So how can we stay safe when the internet is just trying to sell us the same toxic nonsense in a new aesthetic package? Okay, so how to stay safe and protect your peace. I think that I have sufficiently dragged SkinnyTok through the mud, and it deserves that. So what can you do even when it feels like the world seems to be going backwards to 1997? You can still do something. And the first thing that I suggest is just take some time to curate your feed. I want you to curate your feed like your life depends on it. So if you see something and it triggers you, mute it. Unfollow it, block it, release it with love. You know, you don't owe anyone your mental health, and you especially don't owe anything to that wellness influencer you've been following for years. You don't owe it to, even Lizzo. She was such a massive figure in the body positivity movement, and she can, it's her body, her prerogative. She can do what she wants. But if you're finding it triggering to see Lizzo go through her weight loss journey and the way that she's talking about her body, it's okay to mute it. You also have people say, like an auntie who's always posting about her weight loss shakes, or you might have an old friend from high school who quite regularly is posting things like before and after pictures on her social pages. These are all examples of how I want you to curate your feed. Mute them, unfollow them, block them, release them. You do not have to keep witnessing this stuff and subjecting yourself to it just because it's a friend or a relative or someone that you've been loyally following for years. Doesn't matter. You get to protect your recovery bubble, okay? That is sacred. The second thing that I want to talk about is just to remember that thin does not equate to healthy, and health does not equate to morality. So just because somebody is in a smaller body doesn't necessarily mean that they are well. So that could be mentally, emotionally, physically. You never know what someone is doing behind closed doors to achieve their body. And you don't know whether that smile on their face lasts beyond the time that they're recording the piece of content. So when it comes to you and your body, I just want to remind you that you don't need to shrink it to be good. And we shouldn't be making assumptions when we see these pieces of content that these people have, peace of mind and they're healthy and they're happy, because even if they're telling you that, the way that you achieve a thin body, unless you are genetically built that way, likely you've had to restrict your food, cut out foods out of your diet, you're moving, a certain amount. And if you do not continue to partake in these behaviors, then you will not maintain any weight loss, okay? And so, yes, they may be in thin bodies. Doesn't mean they're healthy, and it doesn't mean that it's achievable, and it doesn't mean that it's something that you will want to subject yourself to for the rest of your life. So you are allowed to prioritize having peace of mind over the size of your pants, okay? I say this all the time, and I'm happy to repeat myself to you guys. The size of your bum does not dictate whether you are allowed to have a fabulous, amazing life. Or it does not dictate whether you are allowed to eat or not, or to rest or not, or to chase that dream or not, or to say yes to being seen and taking up space in the world. You are allowed to stay in a body that diet culture may not celebrate. And you are still allowed to live a full, joy-filled life. You get to decide that, okay? The next thing I want you to do to try and protect your peace and stay safe is do some counter statements and reframing when your diet culture voice pops up in your head. So let's just say you catch that inner critic whispering something in your ear about, well, I need to be in a thinner body. I want you to try this strategy here. So firstly, we hit pause. Pause when you hear that voice pop up in your head, take a breath, and we're going to say something either out loud in your mind to counteract that statement. So ideas, and I want you to come up with some counter statements for yourself that feel, true to you and authentic, and using your own language and slang and things like that. But you might choose to say something like, you know what, thin as in might pop into your head, or, moment on the lips, lifetime on the hips, that kind of rubbish. You might say to yourself, hey, this is diet culture talking, not truth. Or you might say, hey, I choose freedom, not control. Or my goal in life is not to shrink. I am actually here to heal. That's what I'm working on right now. So I need you to start interrupting any negative self-talk that may be happening for you as you're viewing this kind of content. And remember that when you do have that negative self-talk, it's not your fault that it's popped up. Remember, you've been conditioned by our society to have these thoughts, and right now there's an increase in the prevalence of that whole thin as in message. But when you have that thought, remember, it is just a thought. It is not a truth, and it's not an instruction that you have to act on. So just because the thought comes into your head saying that you need to lose weight, or you need to start a new diet, or you need to do 1,000 burpees, or you need to burn off that slice of cake, I want you to hit pause, take a breath, use a counter statement, and just start giving yourself a new script. You do not need to follow that story. Another practice that's going to keep you safe is starting to recognize your actual needs. So when you feel tempted to restrict, whether that's through your food or mentally restricting by telling yourself that some things are good or bad, or you want to punish your body for, say, eating that slice of cake so you do the 1,000 burpees, I want you to ask, okay, what do I actually need right now? Am I actually needing rest? Am I actually needing connection? Am I needing a sense of control? Because a lot of the time when we choose to restrict our food or to over-exercise or to purge or use a laxative or something, it's coming from that place of wanting to have a sense of control over something in your life. So could it be that? Could it be that you're trying to create a sense of safety for yourself? Chasing thinness is often a coping mechanism, but it's never the solution. And I had this in my own life experiences, and I've talked about it in other episodes, that when I reached my dream body, which was a thin body, it didn't solve all of my problems. And in fact, it only highlighted the root causes for me, is that a lot of my unhappiness, like, yes, I was unhappy in my body, but once I reached that dream body, I just found new things to fixate on and obsess about and beat myself up over. So losing weight is never the solution to whatever the root cause behind your dissatisfaction is, or your struggle, or your distress. When you tend to the actual need, your urge to binge, or your urge to restrict, or your urge to lose weight, or to spiral, it will soften. So in my signature program, The Breakup, I actually have a whole module, and it's called Feel and Heal. And this is where I will teach you how to actually tune in to what is going on for you and supply evidence-based, therapist-approved tools to attend to your true needs effectively. The final kind of tip that I want to give for today is that if you need to step away from social media, I want to say, give yourself the permission to do that. Social media is not worth sacrificing your nervous system over. It is not. It's not worth it. If you're going into that fight or flight when you're seeing this kind of content, then I need you to take a break. I need you to get outside, to go journal, to play music, to call a friend, because you don't have to just be strong enough to scroll through toxic content. Instead of just trying to tolerate it, you can choose not to. You don't have to tolerate it, you can put it aside. Like I said, I do really want to encourage you to curate your feed, but the next step is taking breaks as well. So take breaks when you need to. And I say all of this with so much love because it isn't about being naive or pretending that diet culture doesn't exist. You know, we're doing this recovery journey together. But the fact is, you're not doing it in a vacuum. You're doing it in this society. And look what's happening right now. Thin is starting to become in again. So we need to give you some tools to be able to opt out of that noise so you can continue to stay committed to your truth and your healing and your peace. Because that's actually what matters, right? Okay. So here's what I want you to take away from today's episode. Firstly, yes, the thin obsessed trends do seem to be coming back in, but you don't have to go with them. You're allowed to choose something different. You're allowed to honor your hunger when it comes up. You're allowed to feel your feelings instead of running from them. And you are allowed to protect your peace like it's the most valuable thing that you own, because honestly, it is the most valuable thing that you own. If you've been watching these trends creep back in and you feel yourself getting a bit triggered, I want you to know that there is support for you. That is why I'm here. You don't have to fight this alone or try to navigate recovery with just willpower, putting your head in the sand, or some inspirational Instagram quotes. No. This is why I created The Breakup. The Breakup will help you to break free, not just from the binge and the emotional eating, but the whole concept of the breakup is to also break up with all the ways that diet culture has taught you to be at war with food and to be at war with your body. So I'm going to teach you things like how to rebuild that trust with your body, how to eat without guilt, how to regulate your emotions without relying on food, and how to finally feel like you're in charge, not that binge brain, not diet culture, not the scale. So if this episode has hit home for you, maybe the breakup is the next step, and you can find the details in the show notes. Enrollments are open right now. And hey, if nothing else, I hope you walk away from this episode knowing that you're not alone. This community is real. You are part of this community. Your healing is valid, and you don't have to shrink to be enough. I'm proud of you always. I hope this was really helpful. If you ever want me to talk about anything in particular on the potty, just flick me a DM on Instagram and let me know what you want to learn about next. Until then, I will catch you next week. Have a fab week and take care of yourself. Ciao.